Let me know when it's live.
I'm watching. Let's see. My neighbors are getting chatty. Okay, we're on. We're live.
Okay, great. I'm just going to go ahead and share. Share now.
The title didn't show up here. Let me see if I can edit that while you're sharing.
Okay, good. It showed up on my thing too. Okay, sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and get us in, and while you see if you can edit that.
It must have shown up because, go ahead. I think we're good. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So you and I were having coffee this morning, working on iconic bonding stuff, and for those who may not know, iconic bonding is where we've taken the 4 icons. We used to call them avatars, 4 icons, and we look at bonding, pair bonding, through this lens of the human, the God, the master, and the alien. And we talk about each of these icons and how, when they are activated and charged and potent, as we say, combined together in this alchemical way that produces the iconic bond. We call that the paragon. So that's kind of where that is. And today, while we were talking about the God, you and I were discussing the God, and also the qualities of the paragon diamond, and the formation of this diamond, and our lives being the opportunity to decide what we want and how it will be. We're constantly making choices about that. We think about building wealth or establishing a career or learning a skill or learning a trade or becoming a professional, men and women alike. And we think about building our wealth, building a home, and we just assume that our relationship is going to be bonded and strong, and or we're going to attract or bring in this relationship. And yet for some of us it hasn't happened that way, or we haven't had the same relationship over the lifetime. And that's my case after 28 years, looking back and going, oh, whoa, okay, I can see, looking at the icons, where all aspects of the bond were not being built, intended to, while I was raising children and while I was creating a home. And I had completely neglected my God goddess icon completely, and did not understand her and did not know these things. And now I've gone back in the last 5 years and had experiences that would have been developmentally appropriate to have in my teen and early 20 years. I'm having those experiences now between the age of 50 and 55, which is like, really, and yet no shame. It is what it is, and yet I'm doing it, and I'm preparing as I'm building in that sense. So I'm going in and I'm looking at each 4 of these areas and going, oh, okay, this has to be all flipped up so that I will be I'm going to use the word surface for a bond. And so I was sharing with you my experience being on Maui, because Maui's a small island. Everybody says this. It's a small island, especially when you're thinking about dating or pursuing a relationship. Like, what that code for is be very, very careful how you what and who you do is what that means. And so it's not like being lost on the mainland or anything. This is like, people are going to see you, and you're going to
really intimate.
Yeah, it's really intimate. So, which I think is hilarious. And so so me in scientist observer mode is sitting back and watching and noticing all of the patterns and categories, and I'm algorithmically analyzing all of this stuff because my INTJ brain just gravitates toward that. And so I get super curious and observant, you know. And so one of the things that I've noticed is on the island, I've watched these different men from afar, and the women too, I'm sure. I just happen to notice the men because I'm not a man. And I'm noticing that as they age, the ones that are single have, you know, not built the wealth of the bond, and so they're in their 60s and early 70s, and they desire to be bonded with a woman, the queen protecting the king, so to speak, the king and the queen going into the later years for the comfort and companionship and all the things, the health benefits that relationship brings. And that's scientific. It's shown that men in relationship live longer, they're healthier, all these things. Um, um, they don't have that. And so they were out exercising their full ranges of freedom in non-monogamy or polyamory or whatever, you know, in their 40s, 50s, and even into the 60s, you know, chasing all the ass, doing all the things. And it was all good and fine and right and free love and blah, blah, blah. And now they're looking around going, well, I'm declining in years. And now I do not have, or they're admitting, I desire a bond. I desire companionship. I desire all the benefits of that. And it's, I don't have it. And they're like, now they're faced with the decision of, well, do I just continue on in that game that, you know, my previous game, or do I migrate into this building of monogamy, or the bond, we'll call it, with one person who will be my bond through the end of my days. And it's sad to me to see, to watch. That's my emotion coming up about it. And at the same time, I'm beginning to understand how that's happening and not happening.
And this came through from us looking at, you know, this iconic bond as it downloaded for us is relative to the pristine diamond, the paragon diamond.
Yes.
We were looking at the facets of the diamond as well as the four icons, talking about the 4 C's of the diamond: color, cut, clarity, carat. And relating that to the icons. And as we were doing that, we began to talk about in the later years how this looks, how it is starting to manifest in what you're seeing for men who, specifically your first words were, the king protects her, but the queen also protects the king.
Right.
And that for these men who, as you just described, haven't had the foundations nor really the conscious desire for the bond, and women as well, it just happens to be that men are in your field, women as well, where in the later years, she doesn't have his protection, his covering, but for him, it's the protection doesn't just go one way, that the masculine protects the feminine. There's a form of feminine protection, and I love the word that you used, which is she has the potential to be his blessing.
Oh, yeah.
That was like a quick turn on, zing, energetic charge when you said that, and you spoke of it as the fountain of youth. She carries this energetic through the later years, through the bonding process that they have shared, to really give him a life charge, which serves as its own protecting energy around him, around his well-being, around his ability to build the wealth, to, by that time and age, to settle in and enjoy the wealth that he has built. And I love what you have talked about on several occasions to bring the monogamy piece in, that if you're going wide,
Yeah.
several
Out.
partners out,
You're
several
dissipating.
partners,
Yeah.
you're not getting that depth. And we've talked about and will continue talking about through the Paragon Portal, through the Iconic Bond course, what that depth brings. This was a whole different nuance in the mature years, in the later time of life. We're all so familiar in the early years and when you're choosing and when you're really hungry and you're looking for that partner and you want the intimacy, you want the sensuality, you want the protection, you want the building, you want the family. But in the later years, there's a different desire for that deep bond and intimacy and that ability to sort of travel together.
This is the reward. This is the gold.
Love that.
This is the reward, is how are we each other's reward for having engaged with conscious awareness the bonding process, the rupture and repair, the challenges and the moving forward, the withdrawals and deposits, so that at the end our balance is full. It's plentiful. It's the relationship bank account that's able to go into the sunset years. Because we both know that if you judge the diamond based on its carat weight alone, you know that that diamond could be a cheap facade that's not able to withstand the pressure of being set and reset and being worn. I'm going to say being worn, so to speak. It becomes the facade of the relationship instead of the symbol of what's behind it that's rich and full underneath it. It's the shell. And so our tendency now for women is to choose the largest expression that may not be the fullest alchemization of all of the qualities of the diamond. It's literally for show, and so is the relationship. It doesn't. There's excuse me, my nose is itching.
The beauty of sharing this, like there's two different threads I want to follow, and we probably only will follow one and have time for one. At some future point, to exactly what you just spoke about, I'm going to share my diamond story. It's not time yet, and I know that, but it falls fully in line with what you just spoke about. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to tuck that away for later. There's also a piece, Michelle, and I don't know, we haven't spoken about this for a while. I was driving one day and we were talking, and you began, I can't remember your exact language, but you also began to speak about, because we're talking right now about men and the masculine in his later years and the feminine, his bonded feminine serving as his fountain of youth, his blessing, his fuel of beauty.
His eternal life in a way. Yeah.
Yes. There's also something you were talking about one day recently related to the whole culture of shutdown and men not being in the workplace.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that there was what was the language for that? Like, that was so juicy and alive, and it feels like it fits in here beautifully also.
I think what I was noticing is that, from the whole post-World War II era where both men and women went into the workplace and then corporate America was given birth to, there was a whole introduction of sexual dynamic that was also running parallel with Woodstock and the free love movement and non-monogamy, and all of those things became the pushback from what marriage used to be, a allocation of resources, possessions, um, um, the way we delineated where our land was, who our people were, who my heirs were, all those kinds of, that's what marriage used to be. And so there was this opening of the portal where there was the free love, free sex, love expression that ran along with corporate culture, and men beginning to express those kinds of things in that culture as well. You think about Mad Men and all of those kinds of shows, you know, where those dynamics were in play. And with the shutdown and people literally not being at the office anymore and they're home, whether they're in a relationship or not, I think for some people, that realization of, oh my gosh, I depended on that, the ability to do that in that way, express myself sexually in that way, for a spark, for a charge, for it was a part of my identity I didn't really realize was there. And now what am I going to do with that? So I think this whole thing has been a real pivotal point, a real defining point for men in how they practiced energetic non-monogamy, so to speak.
And I had forgotten what the language was and what I remembered you saying there was something that by being sent home, men lost the freedom of in the workplace. And it was that you said sexuality, it's that sexual creative energy that has an output, a source of output to be expressed, to be expelled. And the partner to that being that now these men are sent home, and not only do you not have the workplace, but now you're home if you are in relationship, you're home with your partner in relationship. And what does that look like now? Number one. Number two, often an outlet for that energy is porn. So you also don't have that because you're home in an environment. And as we sort of are doing the overview and the drill down into these icons, into the iconic bond, while it's birthing through us, that felt like another significant piece that points toward activating the icons to become bonded. And that's not about whether you're in relationship or not. We've been in relationship, George and I, and our bond became activated, really activated. Like it's been there. George would tell you he knew it all along. I would tell you I tested all the edges of it to ensure that that's what it was. And when we activated that, like a month ago, it was a game changer. So the iconic bond, activating the icons, activating the bond, all of what's happening in our world in partnership with what's true in our being is pointing toward the desire for those who are coded. Granted, not everybody is, but for those who are coded, all of it is pointing toward the desire for this bond. And the man and or woman who has been moved out of the workplace, that's one natural movement toward engaging the bond, as well as what we opened with, the man and or woman who is in the later mature years of life. The bond isn't just for creating family, building wealth. It's for all stages of life and brings benefit, resource, life force, no matter where you might be on that timeline and map.
Mhm.
I love that. It adds to the potency of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've observed men who have had a pattern and a way of dealing with sexual energy. And we know that highly creative environments and also very stressful environments and highly money charged environments both tend toward high sexual energy because it all comes from the same place in the root. Sex and money, they go together. Sex and creativity, they go together. And so that sexual energy, that's why you see, men who travel will have business meetings at strip clubs and, you know, things like that, because that sexual energy charges the creative, and vice versa. And so, where was I going with that? Um, yeah, and so I've watched these men have to adjust to the shutdown, and 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 what I'm seeing for some is that they really don't have the conscious awareness to see that there's a direction that you could go, a different direction you could go here if you want to. It's a pattern that's in place, and yet their heart's desire is really to have this, and yet they only know one thing to do. It's like the skill isn't there to say, oh, this is what this is, or oh my goodness, I'm finally have the opportunity to address my fear of intimacy or my fear of opening my heart, or whatever the thing is that has been the thing in the way from them actually having their deepest desire, and yet they've only known how to do it this way. So there's this huge, like, pivotal moment now where these things are happening for people, and they're still trying to grab at the way that they've always done it and still hold on to that, and yet everything around them is shifting this way, because when you come out of a pandemic, the energy is procreation. And as you and I have discussed, you and I are both very fertile, creative, what was the word we said?
Right.
Ripe people. We're multipliers. You give us something and we're gonna create. That's why my clients are like, oh my God, the money's coming in. I'm like, yes, the money's coming in. Like, oh, stay open for it. It's the other shoe is gonna stay on. It's okay. This is the natural result of all the switches being in place, and that wealth coming in the master icon. It's a natural result of it.
And it's not just money.
Right.
It's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's wealth of all kinds. And that's been my experience as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Health, money, what you desire for relationship, and because pair bonding is like, as we come out of this in the next year or two, the that's a natural result of the shift in our culture, and the pandemic energy is going to be this creativity and bonding, no matter what age you are, because it's an energetic in the collective, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we've got to reproduce this DNA. We've got to express our masterful selves. It's an impetus. It's a pulse of the collective, I'm going to say.
Which is part of what was in the early stages of iconic bonding.
Yeah.
I go back to a conversation that we had about the incoming alien is one of the icons, the incoming alien energies encoding,
Mm-hmm.
and that was going to serve as impetus to the human icon to preserve the DNA and not just have it all become alien coding.
I was looking to see if there's any comments. Yeah. Oh, you look lovely. Eddie says you look.
Eddie. Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, Eddie. Um, that was addressed to you, by the way. You look lovely, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Eddie.
Yeah, definitely. It's just fascinating to me to sit in the observer seat and watch these dynamics play out. And this being such a small island, it's a little easier to see, how, for me, how it looks. And it felt different in a place like Dallas, where you can be easily blinded by the facade, the money and the ego and the power and the flash and the God and and here it's a lot more stripped down. So, the person sitting next to you that looks like a bomb is a billionaire, or really a bomb. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's just different, Yeah. So I guess that was kind of what came out of this morning was, and of course, if you flip it and you look at the women too, women have, for those who are seeking pairing or desire to be paired, I should say, it's the same process, different energetic, and it always starts the same way, with flipping on the primal, and then the God heart piece, and then the master and the throat and the money, and all of these things.
Yes. And just to drop one little piece for what seems to be highly potent in creating, especially in the goddess icon,
Mm-hmm.
the surface, as you say, for that bond for the feminine is to really own her desire, and
Yeah.
coming out of where we have been in women's movements and goddess energy and all of what contributes to that. For many women, this is an activation point to really get into the truth of what she desires, and that it is to be deeply bonded with him and the pathway for her when he's not in her field yet, how she can navigate that, which I've been there, you've been there. I think most any woman who desires the deep, intimate bond that has the qualities of the paragon, of the icons, she knows what that deep desire is. And whether she's aware of it or not, has also wrestled with herself about really coming into the truth and purity of what her desire is and allowing that to be so.
Yes. And the thing I love about this model, or this frame, is that when you step into it and you begin to work all of the switches for yourself individually, and I think I've shared this before, you get to a point where you are fully activated, you are fully charging, you are doing all of the things in the open-hearted space, and your primal charge is what people would call the radiance, I guess you'd say. Although I think you put that in the God goddess, which is adequate too. The primal is the light within that shines out, so to speak. It's the stored sunshine, I call it.
Yes,
it's
that's what I felt.
It's your light. It's your light wealth. It's how did you blockchain the sun? Is what I call it. Blockchaining the sun. I'm like, fuck Bitcoin, baby. Just give me some sunshine. It's all cool. Yeah. And so I guess the thing I'm trying to say is that that's her sovereignty, is And if you came to her and said, okay, on this date, your pair bond is going to drop into your field, um, and you go, great, awesome. Am I going to do anything differently on my way to that point in time? You want the answer to be no. You want the answer to be no. I'm not going to do anything differently. I am who I am. I'm in my fullest expression. I'm I'm doing the things that are my own masculine provision for myself in a way that still leaves me charged and open-hearted and in the way that I would be in a pair bond. I'm not going to do anything differently. I'm doing it the way that I'm going to do it. And the thing about it is, and you and I were talking about this earlier, because as we look over the terrain of people who are doing this type of or bonding right now, and we're noticing different women who, because of their age and stage in life, you and I are looking at it and going, this falls under a skill that she needs to be able to run the home. This is not her husband's job to teach that skill. He might reveal the need for it, or it might not be his job to say. He might share with her, his opinion on it.
Yeah.
This is a way that you think about running the home. And homes can be run in different ways. It's just that when an issue comes up, there's a way that a literal queen would look at running it from running the castle. And you and I both run huge homes with multiple children and done it with beauty, grace, and the envy of many. And how did we get those skills? I know my mother was a beautiful example of managing and keeping a gorgeous, well-run home. So some of that was modeled for me, and then other skills I got on my own, and alchemized and modulated all of that information into what became the way that I ran the home.
As you said that, this morning you said we were looking at the God Goddess archetype icon. And I'm going back to my Carolyn Mays days. And you just saying that, and we talked about the running of the home and the women passing it down to the women, and that's where it comes from. We also talked about in the God Goddess icon, there are different facets of that, king, queen being one of them. And the queen is the lineage. And you just sort of piece together the lineage of the home, of navigating, holding, managing the home, which is the mother, mm-hmm. in the realm of the queen. Mm-hmm. And these seem possibly like they're separate pieces over here and don't relate to the iconic bond. However, when you drill down, lineage, home, eros, legacy, all of these are part of these icons, and what is embedded in the coding for those who desire to deepen into the bond and essentially create all facets of life together, which doesn't mean you do everything together, but it means your energies are bonded and moving toward the same desires in how you want to live the umbrella of your life. Mm-hmm. And bringing that full circle right back to where we began as we sort of wind down, because we just wanted a quick little chat. That piece of her management in the home, her radiance in the home, her ability to multiply what he brings in through the home, through the family, through the energy through her own life force goes right back to the deepening rather than the widening, the spreading, the spanning. What was your word for it?
The sprawl, the
The sprawl.
dissipation. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes right back to that depth and the blessing that she is and brings to him in those later stages of life.
Mm-hmm. You know, when you don't know, so when I got divorced, that was the hardest thing for my children, was watching. And you and George dismantled your home recently as a choice to go into your later years. Mine was dismantled as a result of divorce, and I had designed and built that home, and it was a gorgeous home, and it was iconic in its presentation and its elements. The things that had happened in that home were rich and full and very grounding into my children's experiences of life. And to watch that be dismantled was just, it felt like a ripping, a rending apart. And it would have felt that way if it had been a choice because we were going into the later years, or if it were from divorce. It doesn't matter. It's still the dismantling of the beautiful creation of home. And since then, and you have this same passion, um, which is, I'll put a little parentheses in here, that what we're talking about here and the way we talk about what we're talking about is not for everybody. This is like purse shopping. Remember, there's going to be Target, there's going to be, this brand, there's going to be this brand, there's going to be Louis Vuitton, there's going to be Hermes, and we all have a place that we like to shop because of the way that it feels or smells or the finishes or what it represents about our personalities and all of that. So we're freely discussing what represents our experience and what we feel is a code or a brand, so to speak, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's going to look different for the expressions of who you are, your codes. And so since that, I mean, and you do this too, is we create beautiful homes. It doesn't matter where we are. We're gonna create home, and you do it with a man, and I do it with my energetic masculine present and pleasing, devoted to that. The God presence of my full being. I devote that that look and that feel to that energetic, and it's fully expressed. And honestly, it can be a little intimidating sometimes because it's it's just like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah, and that one was only $20, and that chair was $5, and that was, and so it's the energetic expression of what's in my heart and from my creativity, not necessarily only a reflection of my wallet.
Which is also part of her gift back to him.
Right.
Her ability to create home and beauty and her own expression of a kind of stabilized energy. We're now in this new space that when we came in, we're just here for a couple of weeks before whatever is next.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came in here, some of it still you can see is highly masculine, but I brought in the flowers and the crystals and the lighting and the things that are natural to my coded feminine. And yet, over time, as we have been bonded both not consciously and fully consciously, they have an impact on George and his system. Mm-hmm. And he would tell you that. Mm-hmm. He would tell you that. There was it doesn't matter. The story doesn't matter, but that's part of her blessing mm-hmm. upon him that is really effortless in her system.
Mm-hmm. It's like the two scenarios I liken it to are like this summer, I went to the market and the man I was with at the time handed me $100 bill and he said, I'm going to go to my office here. You go shop. I'm hungry.
Okay.
So I'm like, yay. And
Yes.
so, right.
Yes.
So I go to the market and I purchase a feast. And I knew it and I didn't. I'm going to say I didn't, but I did. He didn't want me to bring him any change. He just wanted me to go spend it. And what did I do? I brought back the flour. I mean, I set a king's table.
You multiplied. That's what you did. You multiplied. That's what she does.
Yes, I multiplied it. I set the king's table as if I had cooked it and prepared it myself.
Yep. Yep.
With beverages and appetizers and the main course and dessert and flowers and all of the yummy sensual pieces of that.
Right.
Very right. And he's like, I hope you spend it all. And I had $35 in my pocket.
Like, multiplied, baby.
And so I'm like, so do you want the change? She's like, you better not give me any change. And I'm like, okay, there's no change. Okay, fine. You know.
My blessing, your blessing. Thanks, baby.
It's that kind of multiplying energy where she takes a seed and creates a child. She takes this and she makes this. It's this. And I love it because I see it in my clients too. It's like, okay, you know, we're waiting for the sprout to grow. We're going to set the soil. We're going to plant you. You're going to have this, and this, and this is going to blossom. And when
you never know when that is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It happens when it's time. And depending on what you're growing, right?
Yes.
Let it come first. And then, you know, it might take 9 months or 18 months to get something else. It's just, it depends on what it is. Yeah.
It's got its own timing. It's got its own energy.
It's so fun. And, you know, I understand that this is not everyone's language and this isn't everyone's message. And I know that for a lot of people, there are elements that speak to most people, most people's energetic.
I like that you did this here, right here, right here where the truth is.
You know, Maui, it's the heart chakra. It's the, you know, Maui's done her thing with that, right? Just blown it open instead of crushed it, just blown it open and given me the keys to the kingdom here from the top of Haleakala to, you know, the depths of the world here, the power. You know, it's just it's been a phenomenal experience. And could I have had that somewhere else? Sure. And
but you're in Maui
here. Yeah. So very cool.
I love it. I love it. And
were there any other comments or any other things that came up on your wall? Because I'm really not really great at checking that.
Just a little bit. Kevin, we're going to give a shout out to Kevin who said, hey, I have time to watch while I make lunch. And then I think probably while you were talking about we all have different tastes, he chimed in with I have expensive taste, which Kevin does not surprise me. And Jennifer Frederick, hello, I see you. And that's it.
Great.
Quiet today.
Lovely. All right, perfect.
Okay. Thanks, Lovey. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
More to come. See you.
Yeah, bye.